The chamber stretched into darkness above, its ceiling lost somewhere beyond the reach of light. Ambassador David Cross stood on a platform no wider than a dinner table, surrounded by 1,200 alien species arranged in towering rings that climbed toward infinity. The air itself seemed to press down on him, thick with the breathing of 1,000,000 beings who had come to witness the judgment of humanity. Beside him stood Admiral Grace Harper, her uniform crisp despite the journey across 17 star systems. Behind them, a young diplomat named Peter Walsh clutched his tablet and tried very hard not to look at the countless eyes watching from every direction. The supreme arbiter descended from the highest tier. It was not a creature of flesh, but of pure crystallized thought, its geometric body pulsing with colors that had no names in any human language. When it spoke, the words did not come through sound. They appeared directly in the mind, cold and absolute. Humanity, OF Earth, you stand before the unified Galactic Council, 4,000 species, 100,000 worlds, the supreme authority of all known. Space, you have been judged. David Cross adjusted his cufflinks. The gesture was small, almost invisible, but it sent ripples of confusion through the assembled representatives. The Velthri delegation, creatures of liquid metal, contracted in surprise. The Corvin collective flickered its shared consciousness with disbelief. Even the ancient Primarchs, the first species to walk among the stars, leaned forward in their floating chambers, that no species had ever adjusted their clothing during a judgment. Your expansion into the frontier zones has violated 19 treaties, the Arbiter continued. Your development of fusion weapons has violated the Accords of Perpetual Peace. Your refusal to submit to mind registration has violated the Prime Mandate. Peter Walsh swallowed hard. Mind registration was the process by which the Council catalogued every thought, every memory, every dream of a conquered species. It was how they ensured obedience. It was how they erased resistance before it could begin. The penalty for these violations is total submission. Your military assets will be seized. Your population will be distributed across labor worlds according to Council needs. Your planet will become a resource extraction site. You have one cycle to no thank you. David Cross spoke the words casually, as if declining a second cup of coffee. The great chamber fell absolutely silent. 1,200 species stopped breathing, stopped processing, stopped existing for one frozen moment of collective shock. I do not understand, the Arbiter said, and for the first time in 3,000 years. Uncertainty flickered in its crystalline form. Did you say? No thank you, Cross repeated. He pulled out a small device from his pocket and began reading something on its screen. Earth declines the Council's generous offer. We will not be submitting. Was there anything else? The Velthri representative surged forward, its metal body forming sharp edges. You cannot decline. The Council's word is absolute. We have crushed species that controlled entire galaxies. Your single world, your handful of ships, your primitive technology, you are insects. Cross looked up from his device. 37. What? Ships. We have 37 now. Built 3 more last month. He returned to reading. Also, our population just passed 9 billion. Busy year. Admiral Harper allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The Arbiter pulsed with barely contained fury. Human, you understand that refusal means war. The combined fleets of the Galactic Council number in the hundreds of millions. We have weapons that can shatter worlds, collapse stars, unravel the fabric of space itself. Your species has existed for the blink of an eye. We have been conquering since before your sun ignited. David Cross finished whatever he was reading and slipped the device back into his pocket. We know, he said simply. He turned to Admiral Harper. Grace, what is our current threat assessment on the Galactic Council? The Admiral's voice was professionally flat. Moderate concern, Ambassador. Large force with questionable coordination. Heavy reliance on technological superiority that has not been tested in actual combat for approximately 700 years. Comparable to the situation in the Persian Gulf, 1991. Confused murmurs swept through the chamber. No translator could make sense of the reference. Moderate concern. Cross nodded. That matches my reading. He looked up at the Arbiter. We appreciate the Council's interest in Earth, but we will have to pass on the submission. If there is nothing else, we have a flight to catch. The Arbiter's geometric form began to fracture with rage. You will burn. Every human colony, every vessel, every city. You will be made an example that species will remember for 1,000,000 years. You will be erased so completely that the universe will forget you ever existed. Cross considered this for a moment. Peter, he said to the young diplomat, did you remember to set the recording for the football match tonight? Peter blinked. Yes, sir. Both matches. Excellent. Cross faced the Arbiter one final time. When your fleets arrive at Earth, please give us at least a day's notice. Traffic around the planet can be difficult, and we would hate for you to have trouble finding parking. The three humans turned and walked toward the exit. Behind them, the great chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives screamed in 17 different languages. The Velthari formed attack shapes. The Corvan collective fractured into 1,000 panicked fragments. But the humans did not look back. They walked calmly, steadily, as if the most powerful governing body in the galaxy had just mildly inconvenienced them at the door. Admiral Harper paused and turned. One more thing, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Your intelligence reports say we have 37 ships. Those are the ones we let you see. She smiled. You might want to update your files. The door closed behind them. In the observation booth, high above the chamber. Primarch observer Kilos watched the footage replay for the 7th time. It had existed for 800 million years. It had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. It had seen species beg, species fight, species surrender in every way imaginable. It had never seen a species walk out. The human ambassador's face filled the screen, frozen in the moment before he declined the Arbiter's judgment. There was no fear in those eyes, no desperation, no false bravado. There was something else, something Kilos had not seen in a very long time. Confidence, not the confidence of ignorance, not the confidence of delusion, the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Kilos began, reviewing the Council's intelligence files on Earth, population, technology, military assets, history. History was particularly interesting. Humans had been fighting each other since before they developed language. Every weapon they possessed, they had invented to use against themselves. Every strategy, every tactic, every form of warfare they had practiced on their own kind for thousands of years. And 600 years ago, they had intercepted a Council navigation beacon. They had learned everything about the Galactic Council, its technology, its methods, its weaknesses. 600 years of preparation. Kilos felt something it had, not experienced in millions of years. Fear. In the depths of the human solar system. Hidden in the electromagnetic storms of the gas giant they called Jupiter, something ancient began to stir. Something humanity had been building in secret for centuries. The Council had just made the worst mistake in its history. And it did not even know it yet. 5 days after the declaration of war, the first fleet of the Galactic Council dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Korvath of the Kildrothi Empire stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Unstoppable, and surveyed the assembled might around him. 90,000 vessels stretched across 2 million kilometers of empty space. Dreadnoughts the size of mountains. Carrier ships housing billions of attack drones. Siege platforms capable of burning continents to glass from orbit. Against this, his intelligence reported, humanity had 37 ships. Korvath allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This would not be a war. This would be an extermination. Admiral, his communications officer called out. We are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld. Display it. The face that appeared on screen was not the ambassador from the council chambers. This was a woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She wore a simple white coat with no military markings. Galactic Council First Fleet, she said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant, like a teacher addressing young students. This is Dr. Helen Moore, speaking on behalf of Earth Defense Command. We have detected your arrival and would like to welcome you to our solar system. Korvath's secondary hearts beat with confusion. Welcome? We have prepared a greeting for you. I hope you find it educational. The transmission ended. Korvath turned to his tactical officer. Scan the system. Show me their defenses. Scanning now, Admiral. I am detecting 37 vessels in orbit around the third planet. No defensive platforms. No weapons satellites. No orbital stations. Nothing else in the entire. The officer stopped speaking. Continue. Admiral, I am also detecting a message beacon broadcasting on the emergency frequency. It is positioned directly in our approach path. A beacon? What does it say? The officer was silent for several seconds. It says, please review the attached historical files before proceeding. We apologize in advance for what happens next. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances. Korvath felt his battle hunger curdle into something unfamiliar. He pushed it aside. Ignore the beacon. All ships, attack formation. We proceed to the third planet. The first fleet moved through the outer system without incident. They passed the ringed giant the humans called Saturn. They passed the massive storm world called Jupiter. They entered the asteroid belt, that ring of rocky debris between the inner and outer planets. And then the rocks began to move. Korvath watched his tactical display explode with contacts. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Tens of thousands of objects that had been invisible moments before suddenly powered up and oriented toward the fleet. Admiral. Unknown weapons platforms. They were hidden inside the asteroids. Our scans could not detect them because the first volley struck the fleet's outer edge. Ships did not explode. That was the wrong word for what happened. They ceased to exist. One moment, a Kildrathi destroyer was accelerating toward Earth. The next moment, there was a sphere of perfectly uniform plasma where it had been. No debris. No escape pods. Nothing. Complete matter to energy. Conversion. 70 more ships vanished in the time it took Korvath to draw a single breath. Return fire. Target those platforms. The fleet responded with everything it had. Beams of focused antimatter. Warheads carrying reality-warping payloads. Ancient weapons passed down from the Primarchs themselves. The platforms absorbed it all, not deflected. Not shielded, absorbed. Korvath watched in growing horror as his fleet's attacks simply stopped upon reaching the platform surfaces. The energy was being collected, stored, redirected. The next volley from the human platforms was measurably more powerful than the first. Retreat. All ships, emergency hyperspace jump. But hyperspace would not come. The drives spun and spun, reaching for the higher dimensions that allowed faster-than-light travel, and found nothing. Something was blocking them. Something was holding the fleet in normal space, like insects pinned to a display board. Dr. Helen. Moore's face appeared on every screen in the fleet simultaneously. Admiral Korvath, she said. and her voice was still pleasant, still calm. "We did ask you to review the files on that beacon. 600 years ago, we intercepted one of your navigation broadcasts. We learned everything about your council, your technology, your methods, your assumptions. Another wave of ships vanished into plasma. You assumed we were primitives because we had only one world. You assumed our nuclear technology was the peak of our development. You assumed that because we fight among ourselves, we must be weak." Korvath tried to speak, but his voice would not come. "You made a lot of assumptions, Admiral. Here is something you did not assume. While you were out there building your empire, we were here solving physics. Not as a path to power. As a puzzle, because that is what humans do. We solve puzzles. And your council's technology was a very interesting puzzle." The platform stopped firing. The fleet's survivors hung motionless in space. Less than half remained. "We are going to let you go now," Dr. Moore said. "Some of your ships need to survive to tell the council what happened here. Make sure you convey the message accurately. We do not want any misunderstandings." Hyperspace access returned. Korvath felt his fleet's drives spin up again. "One more thing, Admiral. That was our asteroid belt. Just rocks and some defensive systems we built over the past few centuries. You have not reached our planets yet. You have not seen our actual fleet. You have not met the people who designed those platforms." She smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was the smile of a grandmother explaining something to a confused child. "Tell the council that Earth sends its regards. And tell them we accept their declaration of war. We just wanted them to understand what that actually means." The transmission ended. Horvath stood motionless as his surviving ships limped into hyperspace. 47,000 vessels destroyed in 12 minutes. The largest military defeat in Galactic Council history, and the humans had treated it like a minor inconvenience. On the Council world of Axios Prime, High Counselor Thissa of the Corvin received Admiral Korvath's report in stunned silence. Her collective consciousness processed the data across 8 separate bodies, and all 8 felt the same unfamiliar emotion. Terror. She reviewed the beacon's attached files. The ones Admiral Korvath had ignored. They contained the complete history of human warfare. Every battle, every weapon, every strategy, every horror humanity had inflicted upon itself over thousands of years. It was a record of violence so comprehensive, so creative, so relentlessly efficient that Thissa could not finish reading it. And at the end, a simple note: "This is what we did to each other for practice. Please consider carefully whether you wish to continue." Thissa called an emergency session of the full Council. The Supreme Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "This changes nothing. We will commit the full might of our combined forces. 200 million ships. Every weapon in our arsenal." "Arbiter," said an ancient voice, "I have analyzed the human weapons data." Primarch Kilos rose from its suspension chamber. "Our long-range sensors detect unusual readings from the human star. Readings that suggest they have been harvesting its energy for centuries. If our calculations are correct, Earth currently has access to more power than our entire council produces in a decade." Silence fell across the chamber. "I recommend," Kilos said, "that we consider a different approach." But High Counselor Thissa was staring at a new intelligence report, one that made her 8 bodies grow cold with fear. The humans were not just defending their system. They were building something. Something massive. Something that made their asteroid belt weapons look like children's toys. And whatever it was almost finished. Ambassador David Cross was feeding pigeons in a London park when the Council's diplomatic shuttle descended through the morning clouds. His security team spotted it first. A sleek silver vessel that looked like a falling teardrop against the gray English sky. Cross watched it land on the designated pad across the river, tossed one final handful of seeds to the birds, and brushed off his coat. "Sir," his aide Peter Walsh said, hurrying to his side, "the Council has sent an actual diplomatic envoy. Not a fleet, Progress." Cross pocketed the empty seed bag. "Who did they send?" "Primarch Observer Kilos, one of the original species. They are saying it is the first time a Primarch has left Council space in 4,000 years. Cross raised an eyebrow. "Now that is interesting. The old ones are paying attention." He walked toward the landing pad. Behind him, the normal bustle of London continued. Tourists took photographs of the Tower Bridge. Business people hurried to morning meetings. Children fed the ducks along the riverbank. None of them seemed particularly concerned about the alien spacecraft in their midst. This, more than anything else, disturbed the being who emerged from the shuttle. Primarch Kilos had existed for 800 million years. It had witnessed the birth and death of stars. It had seen species rise from mud to galactic dominance, only to fade into extinction. It had helped found the Galactic Council itself. In all that time, it had never seen a species so completely unimpressed by the cosmos. A mother walked past with her young daughter. The child pointed at Kilos and asked if it was a new kind of drone. The mother shrugged and said probably, then returned to her phone conversation. Ambassador Cross. Kilos floated forward, its ancient crystalline form pulsing with uncertainty. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "Happy to." Cross fell into step beside the floating Primarch, leading it along the riverside path. Beautiful morning for it. "Want some bread for the ducks?" "I do not consume organic matter." "Fair enough. So, the Council," said the Primarch. "That is not something you do for species you are about to destroy." Kilos appreciated the directness. In 800 million years, it had grown very tired of diplomatic games. "The Council is divided," Kilos admitted. "Your destruction of our first fleet has created uncertainty. Some wish to commit our full military force immediately. Others argue for caution. I have come to understand your species better before we proceed." Cross nodded. "Reasonable. What would you like to know?" "Everything. Your weapons. Your technology. Your strategic capabilities. That is a lot to cover. Might take a while. I have existed for nearly 1 billion years. Time is not a concern." Cross laughed. It was a genuine laugh, warm and unforced. "You know what? I like you. Most council types are all bluster. You are direct. Let us walk and talk." They strolled along the path. The ancient Primarch and the middle-aged human diplomat, surrounded by joggers and dog walkers and the ordinary chaos of a Tuesday morning. "First question," Kilos said. "Your weapons in the asteroid belt. Our physicists say they are impossible. Your physicists are working with incomplete information." Cross waved to an elderly man walking a small dog. "Morning, Mr. Patterson. Nice weather." "Lovely, Ambassador." "Is that one of those aliens, then?" "Primarch Observer. Very old, very wise. We are having a chat about the war." "Ah, well, tell him tea is at 4 if he wants to stop by." Martha made scones. "Will do." Mr. Patterson continued on his way. Kilos watched the exchange with fascination. "He is not concerned? About my presence? About the war itself? Why would he be? He lived through the Blitz, the Cold War, 3 economic crashes, and 40 years of his football team never winning anything. An alien invasion is just another Tuesday." They walked for 2 hours. Cross explained nothing about human weapons or technology. He simply showed Kilos around London. He introduced the Primarch to a coffee vendor who asked if it wanted milk or sugar. He pointed out historical buildings and explained the wars they had survived. He described humanity's fractured, chaotic, argumentative civilization in detail. You do not have a unified government? Kilos asked, genuinely confused. God, no. We have almost 200 countries, thousands of languages, and more religions than I can count. We argue about everything. We fight about everything. We have been fighting each other since before we figured out fire. But your military response to our fleet was perfectly coordinated. Cross's smile shifted slightly. Well, that is different. How is it different? When outsiders show up, we stop fighting each other. Cross stopped walking. They had reached a memorial, a simple stone wall covered in names. This is a war memorial. 2 world wars. We killed about 100 million of each other in the first half of 1 century. Kilos processed this number. Civil conflict? Global conflict. Everyone against everyone. The deadliest period in our history. Cross traced a finger over some of the names. And do you know what happened after? Peace? Briefly. Then more conflicts. Smaller ones. We never really stopped. But here is the thing, Kilos. Cross turned to face the ancient being directly. We have been doing this for our entire existence. Fighting, dying, finding new ways to kill each other. Every weapon your council possesses, we invented independently and used on ourselves first. This is disturbing. It should be. Because here is what you need to understand about humanity. War is not new to us. It is not something we fear. It is not something we avoid. We have been at war for our entire history. Your council has had 700 years of peace. Your soldiers are theoretical. Your admirals study simulations. Your species have forgotten what it means to actually fight. And humans have not forgotten. Humans have never stopped. Cross resumed walking. The weapons in our asteroid belt? We designed those for each other. The platforms around Jupiter? Defense against ourselves. Every system we have, every strategy, every contingency, it was all built assuming the enemy would be us. Resourceful, determined, willing to do anything to win. And when the enemy is not you? Cross's smile returned. Then it is easier. You are predictable. You follow rules. You have hierarchies and protocols. We have studied your council for 600 years. We know exactly how you think, how you fight, how you respond. You have been preparing for us. We have been preparing for everything. You are just the first external test. Kilos floated in silence for a long moment. I will recommend negotiation, it finally said. Cross nodded. That would be wise. But I must ask, your weapons, your defenses, your preparations, they are formidable. But surely you cannot believe you could defeat the entire council. 200 million ships, 4,000 species. Cross was quiet for a moment. Kilos, do you know what mutually assured destruction means? The concept exists in our historical archives. A primitive deterrence strategy. It is not primitive. It is honest. It means that even if you destroy us, we destroy us. We destroy you. Completely. Permanently. Every council world. Every species. Everything. You would murder 4,000 civilizations over a territorial dispute. We would prefer not to. That is why I'm recommending negotiation. Cross's expression did not change. But understand something clearly, observer. Humanity has spent 600 years building the capability to end all life in this galaxy. Not as a first choice, as a last choice. A guarantee that no matter what happens to us, our enemies do not survive either. That is madness. That is humanity. Cross extended his hand. We are not evil. We would rather live in peace, trade with your species, learn from your civilizations. But we will never be slaves. We will never be conquered. And if we are going to die, we are taking everyone with us. Kilos floated back, its ancient form pulsing with emotions it had not felt in millions of years. I will convey this to the council. Please do. And Kilos? I meant what I said. I like you. I hope this works out peacefully. The Primarch returned to its shuttle. As it rose into the clouds, it understood something it had never understood. Before, humanity was not dangerous. Because of their weapons, they were dangerous. Because they meant every word they said. And that was far more terrifying that the full Galactic Council assembled for. War. Every species, every fleet, every weapon system that could be mobilized gathered at the staging point near the Vorin Nebula. 200 million ships stretched across space, so vast that light itself took hours to cross the formation. It was the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. High Counselor Thesa stood before the Supreme Arbiter, her 8 bodies arranged in a formation that signaled absolute certainty. The Primarch's recommendation of negotiation has been rejected, she announced. The humans have had their chance for peace. They responded with threats and arrogance. Their claim that they can destroy us all is a bluff. We will call it. The Arbiter's crystalline form pulsed with approval. The attack will proceed. Every ship, every weapon. We will reduce their world to ash. Actually, said a voice from the public gallery, I would suggest reconsidering. Every being in the chamber turned. Ambassador David Cross was sitting in the observation section, casually eating an apple. Beside him, Admiral Grace Harper was reviewing something on a tablet. Behind them, Peter Walsh appeared to be playing a game on his phone. How? Thesa's 8 bodies convulsed with shock. This is a secure military installation. How did you get here? Cross took another bite of his apple. We hitched a ride on one of your supply ships. Your security is honestly not great. We have had agents in council space for about 500 years. Armed guards surged toward the gallery, but Cross held up his hand. Before you do that, I should mention that we are broadcasting this conversation live. Every communications network in the galaxy, every species, every world. They can all see and hear exactly what is happening right now. The guards hesitated. The Arbiter's form flickered with rage. You dare infiltrate our sacred chambers? Broadcast our proceedings? I dare to try one more time. Cross set down his apple and stood. Look, I understand. You are angry. We embarrassed you. We destroyed your fleet, and we did not even pretend to be impressed. That is humiliating for a council that is used to getting its way. He began walking toward the railing that overlooked the central floor. But I am not here to insult you. I am here to give you one final chance to avoid the worst mistake in your civilization's history. Threats will not. I am not threatening. I am informing. Cross pulled out a small device, a simple remote with a single button. This is linked to what we call the Nova Protocol. It is a dead man switch. If I release this button, or if my vital signs stop, or if anyone makes a hostile move toward me, the protocol activates automatically. Silence fell across the chamber. Admiral Harper, would you explain to the Council what the Nova Protocol does? Grace Harper looked up from her tablet with the expression of someone delivering a weather report. Nova Protocol uses our harvested stellar energy to create a cascading destabilization wave. We cause every star within a 15,000 light-year radius to go supernova simultaneously. The chain reaction spreads at faster than light speeds until it runs out of fuel. Total galactic sterilization within approximately 4 weeks. 4 weeks, Cross repeated. That is how long it would take us to kill everything in this galaxy, including ourselves, including you, including every species that ever existed or ever will. The Arbiter's voice was barely a whisper. Why would you build such a thing? Because we could not be certain of anything else. Cross's voice was calm, but heavy. When we intercepted your beacon 600 years ago, we did not know what we were dealing with. A galactic government, thousands of species, technology beyond imagination. And every record we found showed the same pattern. New species were either conquered or destroyed. There was no third option. He held up the switch. So we made a third option. If we could not be certain of surviving, we could be certain of taking everyone with us. Mutually assured destruction on a cosmic scale. The only guarantee we could give ourselves. High Counselor Thesa found her voice. You are monsters. You would destroy all civilization, all life, all hope, over pride? Not pride. Cross's eyes were hard now. Survival. We tried to join your council peacefully. We sent diplomats. We followed your protocols. And you looked at our little planet and decided we were not worth respecting. You decided to enslave us, to scatter our population across labor worlds, to treat us like animals. He let that sink in. So yes, if that is how this ends, we will destroy everything. Not because we want to, because you left us no choice. The chamber was utterly silent. But Cross lowered the switch slightly. That is not how it has to end. We do not want war. We want peace. Real peace. Recognition as equals. Trade. Cultural exchange. A seat on your council. He looked around the chamber at the thousands of representatives. You can still choose differently. You can recognize that humanity is not your enemy. You can accept that we belong among the stars, just as much as any of you. And if we refuse? Cross smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then I let go of this button, and in 4 weeks, there will be nothing left to refuse anything. The debate lasted 18 hours. Cross sat in the gallery the entire time, his finger on the switch, occasionally eating snacks that Peter Walsh had packed. The galaxy watched through the broadcast feed. Some species argued for attack. Surely the humans were bluffing. Surely no being would truly end all existence. But others looked at the human ambassador's eyes and saw something ancient. Something primal. The will to survive at any cost. Primar Kilos finally spoke. I have walked among the humans. I have seen their cities, their people, their history. They are not bluffing. They have built their civilization on the assumption that someone would eventually try to destroy them. And they have prepared accordingly. It floated forward. We have a choice. We can test their resolve and possibly trigger the extinction of everything. Or we can accept them as equals and build a new kind of galactic civilization. The vote was close. Humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Not as a conquered species. Not as a subordinate. As an equal, Cross lowered the switch when the results were announced. His hand trembled slightly, the first sign of strain he had shown. Thank you, he said quietly. That was the smart choice. High Counselor. Thesa approached him as the chamber began to empty. I want you to know that I still believe you were bluffing. Cross looked at her for a long moment. Counselor, do you know why humans have spent our entire history fighting each other? Because we care too much about our families, our nations, our principles. We fight because things matter to us. He pocketed the switch. And that is why your council made the right decision. Not because we were bluffing. Because we were not. We would have burned it all rather than be slaves. He turned to leave. Welcome to dealing with humanity, Counselor. We are not like other species. We never will be. But if you learn to work with us, you will find we are remarkably good at solving problems. He paused at the door. Just ask the pigeons in London. They seem to like us. He left. Thesa stood alone in the emptying chamber. For the first time in centuries, She had no idea what came next. But she knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never be the same. 10 years after the vote that changed everything. The galaxy had transformed in ways no species could have predicted. Human ships now traveled freely through council space. Human diplomats sat in council chambers. Human technology began spreading to species that had remained stagnant for millennia. And human ideas, strange and chaotic and contradictory, took root in civilizations that had never imagined them. Dr. Helen Moore stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, humanity's flagship diplomatic cruiser, watching a binary star system spin past the windows. She looked older now. Her gray hair turned white, but her eyes remained sharp. The Corvan have agreed to the trade proposal, her aide reported. Full technology exchange. They want our medical advances. We want their metallurgy. Good. What about the Primarchs? Still negotiating. They are curious about our art. Apparently have not produced original creative works in about 500 million years. Helen smiled. Send them Shakespeare. Start with the tragedies. They will appreciate the drama. The door opened behind her. Ambassador David Cross entered, looking more tired than she had ever seen him. Helen, we need to talk. She turned. What is it? Cross handed her a tablet displaying a strategic analysis. The war faction in the council. They did not disappear after the vote. They went underground. Our intelligence suggests they are building something hidden in the outer rim, something designed to neutralize the Nova Protocol. Helen studied the data carefully. They are trying to find a way to attack us without triggering the switch. Cannot blame them. From their perspective, we are holding a weapon to the galaxy's head. So what do we do? Cross leaned against the viewport, staring at the distant stars. We have options. We could expose their plot publicly. Force another confrontation. Maybe trigger the war we barely avoided. Or we could do something different. Something human. Helen waited. The Nova Protocol was always a last resort. A guarantee of mutual destruction. But we built it because we were afraid. Because we did not trust the galaxy to accept us. And now? Now we are on the council. We have allies. We have influence. He laughed softly. We have species asking us for Shakespeare. The universe is different than it was 600 years ago. You are suggesting we disable the protocol. I am suggesting we consider it. Not immediately. Not completely. But gradually. As trust builds. As we prove that we can be part of this galaxy without threatening to destroy it. Helen was quiet for a long moment. The hardliners at home will never accept that. Then we convince them. One conversation at a time. One relationship at a time. One small gesture of trust at a time. That could take generations. Cross smiled. Humanity is good at the long game. 600 years of preparation. Remember? We can spend a few more decades building peace. On the council world of Axios Prime, High Counselor Thesa received a strange communication. It was from Ambassador Cross. Personal. Encrypted. Unofficial. She opened it with uncertainty. The message contained a single attachment. A complete schematic of Earth's Nova Protocol. Every system. Every failsafe. Every weakness. And beneath it, a handwritten note. Counselor Thesa, I know you still have people looking for ways to neutralize our weapons. I am saving you the trouble. Here is everything you need. You could use this to attack us. You could find the weaknesses and try to conquer humanity the way you have conquered so many others. Or you could recognize this message for what it is. A gesture of trust. We do not want to hold the galaxy hostage forever. We want to be partners, equals, maybe even friends. This information is a risk. A chance for you to destroy us, if that is what you truly want. But I am betting it is not. I am betting that somewhere under all that political calculation, you are curious about us, about what we could build together. If I am wrong, you will have your war. If I am right, you will have an ally more valuable than any fleet. Your choice. David Cross P.S. The pigeons in London are doing well. They ask about you. Thesa stared at the message for a very long time. Then, slowly, she deleted it. Not because she was going to use the information. Not because she was rejecting the offer. But because some gestures of trust deserved to remain private. 20 years later, the galaxy barely remembered a time before humans. They were everywhere. In council chambers, in research stations, in trading posts and cultural centers in schools. They brought their chaos and creativity, their stubbornness, and their strange capacity for hope. They argued about everything and agreed on nothing. And somehow they made it work. The Nova Protocol was quietly dismantled over 15 years. No announcement. No ceremony. One day the galaxy-ending weapon existed. The next, it was simply gone. Humanity had not become less dangerous. They had become less afraid. And that made all the difference. In a park in London, on a quiet afternoon, an old man fed pigeons by the river. His name was Peter Walsh. He had once been a nervous young diplomat, clutching a tablet in the grandest chamber in the galaxy. Now he was 76 years old and perfectly content to spend his days throwing bread to birds. A shadow fell across him. Mr. Walsh. He looked up. A young corvin floated there, its liquid metal body shimmering with colors that meant curiosity. I am conducting historical research on the First Contact period. Would you answer some questions about Ambassador Cross? Peter smiled. Sit down. Or float, I suppose. Do your people sit? We can manage. The corvin settled beside him. They watched the pigeons for a moment. I have studied the records, the corvin said. I know what Ambassador Cross did. The confrontations. The negotiations. The gesture with the schematics. But I do not understand something. What is that? Why were you not afraid? In the council chambers, during the judgment, you were surrounded by the combined might of the galaxy, species that had crushed thousands of civilizations. And you were playing a game on your phone. Peter laughed warmly. I was terrified. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the device. But Ambassador Cross told me something before we walked in. Something I never forgot. What did he say? Peter threw another piece of bread to the pigeons. He said, they expect us to be scared. They expect us to beg. Every species they have conquered has done exactly that. Fallen to their knees and pleaded for mercy. That is the whole point of the ritual. To break the new species before the conquest begins. He turned to the corvin, and then he said, so we are not going to do that. We are going to walk in like we belong. We are going to act like their judgment is the most boring thing that has ever happened to us. We are going to make them wonder if maybe they should be the ones who are worried. And it worked. It bought us time. Just enough time to show them we were different. To make them hesitate. The corvin's metal form rippled thoughtfully. Your species gambled on psychology. We gambled on being human. Stubborn, unpredictable, impossible to understand. Peter smiled. The council expected us to act like every other species. When we did not, it threw off their entire playbook. And the Nova Protocol? Was that a bluff? Peter was quiet for a long moment. No, it was never a bluff. Ambassador Cross would have triggered it. Dr. Moore would have supported him. We were ready to destroy everything rather than submit. That seems extreme. It was. But you have to understand, we knew what happened to conquered species. Scattered, enslaved, erased. Our children would have grown up as property. Everything humanity ever was would have been wiped out. He met the Corvin's gaze directly. What would your people do facing that? The Corvin had no answer. We chose the only option that kept our dignity intact, even if it meant ending everything, because that is what humans do. We fight. We hope. We find ways through impossible situations. He threw the last of his bread to the pigeons. And sometimes the impossible situations find ways through us too. The sun set over London. The old man and the young alien sat together in comfortable silence. Around them, the city hummed with life, with commerce, with the ordinary chaos of existence. Somewhere across the galaxy, human and alien children played together in schools that had not existed a generation ago. Scientists from 100 species collaborated on problems that had seemed unsolvable. Artists created works that blended traditions, spanning millions of years. The galaxy had started a war with humanity and humanity. Being human had turned it into something else entirely, not through violence, not through conquest, through the simple, stubborn, impossibly hopeful belief that tomorrow could be better than today. That was humanity's gift to the stars, and the stars had finally learned to accept it.